Jesus didn't specifically talk about tithing very much. He talked about money in possession and stewardship tons, though. Well, howdy, I'm Pastor Landon. Thank you for joining me today. This whole channel is going to be devoted to help young men get started and build a legacy. Thanks for tuning in today. If you wanted to help me out, you could smash that subscribe button, like, comment, do all the things to help it get into the right algorithm. Appreciate you tuning in today. Today I'm going to talk about why all pastors should talk about money other than just tithing. We tend to have a theology in the church just around tithing, making sure that you're generous with the church. That's like absolutely true and a piece of your financial theology. But there is so much more to it, so much more that nearly 15% of everything Jesus talked about was about money and possessions. It's shocking that that doesn't correlate to 1 in 8 series at a church being about money. If there ever is a series about money at your church, I would assume you don't show up because you know they're just going to ask for money. And churches do need money. So I would encourage you, be generous with your church. They have a mortgage, they have electricity bills, they have staff, they have all that. I love blessing churches. You absolutely should tithe. This is, it's in the Bible. It's very clear. There's no gray area. You need to tithe 10% of your income, pre-tax, to the Lord. That's very important. But I think there is so much more than that. Jesus didn't specifically talk about tithing very much. He talked about money in possession and stewardship tons, though. And a recent study done, the number one thing that Gen Z and millennials are worried about is, do you often think that you are not on a path to leaving a lasting and meaningful legacy? Well, majority of a legacy is financial. It is definitely the scoreboard of a legacy in a lot of ways. There's relational legacy, spiritual legacy, and your character legacy that you are leaving behind to your children. But the financial one's like the easiest to measure. Obviously, if your kids aren't showing up at Christmas and you have a large financial legacy, you've probably failed. Everybody's worried about leaving a legacy. Like number one concern. And pastors aren't out there teaching you how to manage your money, how to steward your money, how to have a spirit of generosity, all the things that you need to have a good financial theology. Why is that? Pastors are bad at managing their money. It is not the field you get into if you're good at managing money. I'm pretty frustrated about that. That's part of why I have a channel. I've flipped 140 cars, have a pretty large real estate portfolio, great stock portfolio, have a lot of fun investing in a lot of different ways. I haven't ever really understood the poverty mentality around being a pastor. I don't think the pastors should be overly paid and that all your money should come from your job. I've made more money outside my job every year of my life since I've had a salary job, through investments. But that takes getting started. So you're not going to start there, but if you can invest the $500, the $1,000, $2,500, it'll be shocking what that turns into over your lifetime. So it's really, really important to have a correct view of stewardship. And this needs to start really early on in your life. Unfortunately, pastors aren't equipped to talk about it. So that's why you're tuning into a channel like this. If not this channel, find a channel that teaches you financial literacy, financial theology. There's a ton all throughout the Bible. Jesus is very, very clear on money and stewardship. So he gave us the parable of the talents, the guy that multiplied the equivalent of $2.5 million into $5 million, the 5 talents into 10 talents. Well, Jesus told you should do that. So you now need to figure out the how. There's plenty of ways to invest your money. Stock market, real estate, crypto, bonds, buying cars, selling cars, all kinds of things you can do. But you need to do something. Before you do something, you need to learn something. So tuning into stuff like this, awesome. Glad you guys are tuning in. But read some books, get really knowledgeable on it. That's the first step to stewardship. So, yeah. So I would encourage you to talk to your pastor, ask him about teaching about money. I think this is a really important issue. And I think a lot of pastors need to wake up and start teaching their congregation about money and generosity more than just generosity towards the church. I think that's a part of why Christians are so turned off by talking about tithing, talking about being generous towards the church, is because we're not helping them with their finances. They need to go other places. They need to go learn from non-Christians about money, and then we expect them to tithe their money to us at the church. Yeah, a lot of great people do. But I think you get a lot more engagement if you taught your congregation, if you shepherded them in this area, one of the most important areas to many Christians. So, yeah. And if your pastor does talk about money, please drop them in the comments, give them some encouragement. I would love to see who that is. And if you do me a favor, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below.